Hi, everybody. I'm John Self. Welcome to Office Hours. It's 4 o'clock. It's Wednesday afternoon. It is, I think, the 21st. Yep, nope, it's the 22nd. So we're delighted you're with us today. We've got a great program set up. We're going to be focusing today on mistakes that you can make in the job search process that will absolutely can really hurt your career. And it's basically the questions you don't ask and the tips and the hints about what's going on that you really don't really respond to because you don't want to make somebody upset. You don't want to fall out of favor with the recruiter. You don't want to upset the employer. And we're going to talk about all of that stuff today. Uh, First of all, a little housekeeping. Tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m., we have our regular Thursday morning session of Career Live. We talk about the week's events in health and employment. There have been some more strategic layoffs in healthcare and across the country. So although there are no layoffs that are really what we call economic downturn layoffs, there are a lot of strategic layoffs where companies are adjusting their headcount to maximize their revenue or their net revenue, or net income. And so those are going to continue to happen. Companies, as a result of the pandemic, learned they can do more with less. And so as they go forward, they keep pushing, they keep testing how fewer people they need to do more. And I suspicion that we're not going to see any major growth in the executive and management ranks for at least through the end of 2025, Q4 2025. So that's going to be that's going to be a very, very heavy weight on the executive and management job market. Today, we want to talk about some things that really do hurt people in the job search. And it is, how to avoid damaging job search mistakes, the kind of mistakes that will lead to short tenures. Today's job market, and we just kind of hinted at it, it's pretty unforgiving and it's really hyper competitive. And any of you that have been searching for a job know that's the case, that it's really just very, very difficult to get a job. You have comments about how people have filed over 100 or 120 or 130 online applications and maybe got one or two offers. So it's really, really a tough situation. And I think that there's a big disconnect with a lot of job seekers because they're holding on to their default position, which is this is the way it's always been. This is what I've always done. This is what I've always been comfortable with, and it's always worked in the past. And so they don't want to admit that things have changed so dramatically and that the market for executive and managers has shrunk so significantly that what worked in the past won't work in the future. And so that significant disconnect leads people into a lot of mistakes. Now, to borrow a theme from the old initial way, if you did if you did computer coding, if then that, or if this, then that happens. Well, what we're going to talk about today is when and then what you have to do about it. So, and we mentioned this yesterday in our Lunch and Learn program that was ENCORE broadcast again today at noon. When the prep time for submitting one application is 40 to 90 minutes. Now that's gosh, and when I was coming up, you never spent more than about 30 minutes applying for a job. There were some online, but mostly not. When the average number of applicants for a good job is 100 to 50 to 400 to 1, that's your odds for the chances of you getting the job. And in some cases, with people applying for jobs they don't qualify for, in some cases, there are 800 or 900 or over 1,000 people. And so that's just a lot of noise that you have to plow through. When 7 in 10 resumes are rejected before they're ever seen by a recruiter, when applicants submit 100 or more online applications to get one or two offers, when the average time to hire is 8 to 14 months, then you must be on your A game, including being prepared to ask probing questions to ensure that you understand the details of the job. Now, again, a quote that I've used many times in the past, and I think it is so appropriate for the recruiting business today and the job search business today. It's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And what you knew for sure 10 years ago today just ain't so. What you knew 5 to 7 or 8 years ago today just ain't so. It's changing that fast. And people who keep saying, nope, AI is really not going to have an effect on the market. It's really just going to make us all more efficient. They are just whistling past the graveyard. There are too many people, and the evidence of too many of the developments that are speeding to market to say that this is not going to affect employment. And as AI eliminates more entry level jobs, the management and executive ranks will continue to shrink. So if you're an executive, you're not going to lose your job because of AI. You may lose your job because a lot of other people who were eliminated by AI got the axe. So you have to really change your thinking. And I really want to encourage you to give this a lot of thought. If you want to look at this slide deck again, email me at info@johngself.com. I'm glad to share it with you. But please don't just sit back and say, nah, I don't have to worry, because you are the kind of person that we see here all the time, 8, 9, 10 years into 10 months into a job search, and they've gotten exactly nowhere. And I will tell you that, it's just not something you can afford to do, because severance pay is going down while the time to hire is going up. Now, when you look at the interpretation of what's going on and why so many people make mistakes in the job recruiting process, number one, and this has been around since day one, applicants hear what they want to hear. Okay. 2, confident applicants are the worst when it comes to asking hard questions. They just assume, I got this, I understand this, I am an successful CEO, and that there can't be that many things that hint at this organization that I don't understand. And so they'll ask some probing questions, but they don't worry for a transaction. And I don't mean for it to sound so cruel, but you have to be darn careful about trusting someone in a search process, because you can then find yourself kind of being abused a little bit. Now, the second thing you've got to do, and this is so difficult, is that people they hate to ask those questions. Well, I don't want to upset anybody, and that's not the nature of a lot of people. They're not used to asking questions like I am. I spent a lot of years as a crime writer and investigative reporter, interviewing people who didn't want to talk to me, interviewing people who had kind of bent the rules a little bit and got caught and were really angry that I was asking questions. I remember a county judge up in Houston County. He got really angry with me one time when I was at the Houston Post, and I showed up years later, and by golly, that guy was still in office. And he had kind of skated close to the line, but I don't think he ever crossed it. And I left the post before that ever was resolved. But he remembered me, and he said, "I remember you. You were one of those nosy reporters from Houston that was causing all that problem for me up here." And I remember saying, I was in the middle of trying to close a big EMS deal, and all I could think to say was, Your Honor, all I can do is plead Mark Twain's comment. I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't find honest work at the time. And the room died laughing, and he kind of had to let it go because everybody laughed. And I lucked out because I had a line that I remembered, who knows why. But in the news business, you got to ask tough questions. You're going to make people mad. Well, you have to ask tough questions in the process of the search, and you weren't going to worry. You don't want to make people mad. You don't want to irritate somebody again, then get the job, and then find yourself in a pickle with your new employer. Or you don't want to irritate the recruiter, because let me tell you something: recruiters won't do anything, blatant. They won't do anything visible, but you will die from 1,000 cuts. Okay, the second problem, you got to stop listening for what you want to hear. Okay, you need to park your damn ego at the door. Stop listening for what you want to hear. How many people, here are things that you need to be asking. How many people have been in the role the last 5 years? What's going on here? Is it what's causing the problem? What are the issues I'm going to have to deal with? Is it a turnaround, or is it poor governance? Is it turnaround, or other issues that are dysfunctional with the culture? Are there any internal applications? Somebody asked a recruiter that the other day, and he said, well, we won't discuss that with you at all. And you know what I would have done? I would have said, "Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I don't think if if you can't can't be forthright with me, then I'm not going to be forthright with you. Thank you very much," and drop out. I mean, now when you do that, you're going to probably burn that relationship. But that's just some recruiters don't want to tell you that because they don't want to lose a good candidate. Okay. And they don't want to lose a good candidate because they need to have a panel. Even if they've got a home run internal candidate, they still need to have a competitive panel. And that's one of the reasons they're being paid. And so they don't want to tell you, oh my God, there's a guy that's going to knock it out of the park, and he's the internal candidate. Why would you even continue in the search? So you have to pick up that. So if the recruiter won't tell you throughout the day, as you talk to other members of the recruit team, are there any internal candidates? And even you get down to the hiring manager, just say, I keep hearing that there might be an internal candidate. I was just curious, kind of where I stood in this process. Okay. Even if you show up as a nice looking show pony, you can always, understand where you need to understand where you stand so that if this process drags on and on and on, you can withdraw without knowing that you didn't lose anything. Now, you have to be an active listener. And you have to be a prolific note taker. I have found that note taking really disconcerts people, but you want to make a good record of everything that's going on. Now we have a lot of legal kerfuffle in the New York and Washington and Atlanta area, and some people who are not in trouble are not in trouble because they took prolific notes in meetings, and so they were able to show, here are my notes. And that has helped people more than not. Now, I know some people say, no, never write anything down because then that could hurt you in a lawsuit. Yeah, it could. But, that's, you can scare yourself 7 ways from Sunday about 100 different things. Take the damn notes in the meeting. If they ask questions, write down the questions they're asking. Why? Because you're going to hear them again. And if you're smart and say you're 40 years old and you've got 5 or 6 or 7 more, assignments as you move toward your final goal where you want to end up in your career, you're going to hear those questions over and over again. So build a catalog of all the questions you're asked, but specifically in the search that you're involved, take notes. And when you ask questions, are there any internal candidates? And they say absolutely not, write absolutely not down, because they know that they know they're going to be held accountable if they're not telling you the truth. Now, another issue, you gotta be curious. I think one reason that I enjoyed being a reporter so much is it gave agency to my curiosity. I could ask questions. And sometimes people would say, what does that have to do with this story? I don't know. I was just curious. I think the other thing is that I was a good recruiter because I listened very carefully to people. I listened when they told their story. And when I heard things that just didn't quite make sense, my curiosity would get the best of me and I'd start asking kind of questions for clarity. Now, if you hear vagueness in a job interview and you ask the client a question and they don't answer it, you may not want to immediately challenge them, but you probably want to make a note of that and double back toward the end of your time together. Say, now, I asked about this a few minutes ago and I'm not really clear on your answer, and then ask the question again. Okay? If the recruiter refused to discuss an issue, or if somebody refuses to discuss an issue with you, that's a big yellow flag and it's turning red. So be very, very careful if somebody refuses to discuss an issue with you. Now, here's another key problem. The vast majority of candidates avoid conflict questions. Why did the last person leave? What could you have done better to ensure his or her success? Who pulled the trigger, the market board or the corporate board? Or, did somebody else have an influence? What role did the medical staff, or what role did the union play, or some other? All the issues that come into play in manufacturing, retail, there are all of these communities, there are all these stakeholders. You need to understand if the person before you got fired or left to pursue other opportunities, you need to understand why. What's the market turnover rate for this organization? And as you go through the various interviews, just say, why do you work here? If you've been here 5 or 6 or 7, why do you stay? That's a very telling, and the answer you get is going to be very telling. What will the key employees tell you about the leadership turnover? What will they tell you about the leadership style of governing? One of the things that people very rarely ask, there's two things they very rarely ask. Number one, how will you define my success in 6 months or a year? You know why you want to ask that? Because you hear what you want to hear. So many people have gotten fired because they came in and they knew what their strengths were, and their strengths were celebrated, but that's not exactly what the board wanted them to achieve. And so they went off and went chasing after their strengths and fixing those problems that they were comfortable fixing, and didn't address the more pressing issues from the board's perspective. And after 6 or 8 months, they decided to part ways. And usually the CEO by that time gets a little bit entitled, or she gets a little bit entitled, and they may argue over what the priorities really need to be. Well, if you're a CEO, you have a say in that, but you have a boss. And if they don't agree with your priorities, you need to stop real quickly, kind of in the meeting as soon as you can, and say, yes, I understand. I will get back to you, and I'll get you a plan. And then you need to go say, okay, they're telling me something else. I don't agree with this. I got to get out of here. Okay. You can't just ignore what the board is saying. That's a recipe for disaster. But you want to know, how will they define success in 6 months or a year? Because that's what's going to determine whether they say you've been successful or not. The other thing you need to do is to ask about the culture, because the culture kills everything. If you're not in sync with the organization's culture, you will not succeed. That's probably the biggest reason that so many executives fail. And the fail rate for executives, it's between 50 and 65 or 70% leave within the first 18 months because it's not a fit, or they're not doing what the board wants them to do, or their boss wants them to do. So you have to understand that search firms have a terrible record of success. And the numbers haven't gotten any better since they were tracked starting in mid-1990s. So you can't say, well, this is not really a risk process for me. Well, it is. It is a big time risk for you. And you have to be sure you're asking all the questions. You have to understand this is a broken system, and you're exposed. I don't care how successful you've been or how smart you think you are. If you're in looking for a job, it is a risky proposition. Ask how they're going to define your success, define the culture. Why do people get fired around here? Now, here's our plus 3 tip. You must do your homework, a deep dive, and ask the tough questions. So if you know somebody at one of the big distribution companies, and you're looking at an organization within another territory, and you have great contacts at the corporate level of that distribution company, you can go talk to them and say, is that one of your clients? Yes, we do business with them. Why are they having so many CEOs? I mean, I may go there, and if I do, you'll have a very loyal person supporting you on the inside. But tell me, can you just give me some very confidential, off the record, that I'll never repeat? You'll never know that nobody will ever know that I talked to you. Why are they turning over CEOs? Or why is their CFO, they've gone through 4 CFOs in 8 years? That's a lot. Why is that happening? What are your salesmen telling you about that? And that can be a great source of information. Other people that you know in the community that you can trust, that will talk to you about what's happening, that if you're not a member of that community, you have to look across the board. Now, you have to be smart. You have to be careful. You have to be very discreet. But you have to find people who will help you get additional business intelligence on what's going on in that organization. You have to be prepared to ask the tough questions. And one of the toughest questions, where are the meadow muffins? Another way of saying that is, where are the sacred cows? I won't leave that up too long because we're getting ready to go into the dinner hour. But where are the sacred cows? What are those? What do I have to be careful of? And that's when you ask that question to the members of the interview team. What are the sacred cows around here? The last person that was here, did they step on any sacred cows? Did they do something they shouldn't have done? And people will tend to tell you once they, in the middle of an interview, once they've decided they like you and trust you. And so that's why you're in an interview, you're always trying to promote your likability and your trust so that you can get information from them. Okay. Very, very, very important point. You can't go in and just answer questions. You have to go in and build relationships with everybody that's interviewing you, because otherwise you're not going to get the kind of feedback that can help you avoid a serious career mistake. So if the prospective employer does not answer a critical question, rephrase it and ask it again before the end of the interview. That is so important. You got to keep pushing back. And one of the phrases I always used is, "Hey, now, you may have, I'm sorry, when you're interviewing, you're hearing so much information and you get a little bit nervous, and could we go back? I just need some help with this one issue. I'm not sure I clearly understood it." And then ask the question again, because they can ignore you the first time, but it's going to be really hard for them to ignore you the second time. And finally, if the potential employer eliminates you because you ask tough probing questions, good. Don't feel badly about that. That's a red badge of courage for you. You know why? Because you were talking to the wrong people to begin with, and God was watching over you. You were talking to the wrong people. If they don't like your questions, if they don't like your effort to get to the truth, then don't work for those people. That's not who you want to be with, okay? So that's just a key element. Don't go to work for people who are not going to be candid with you in the search process. Now, here's your key takeaways, I think. Most executives do not understand the talent acquisition process, and so they don't know what to look for. If you're one of our group members in your career community, or if you're a premium coaching client, we will be there with you all the way to answer your questions and to help you sort out what's happening to you in the career process, in that search process. One of the things that you have to understand is you are responsible for avoiding a career mistake. You are responsible. It's possible that they could do something and didn't tell you the truth, and it was really a bad situation. But a lot of times those issues, those mistakes occur because the applicant did not do their part of the process in the search routine. Number 3, employers dissemble, recruiters obfuscate. In other words, it's transactional, so somebody's going to be lying to you if you're not careful. Be aware, be sensitive, know what, use common sense. Don't get carried away, okay? If you're being, it's very flattering to be recruited, but don't get carried away. Pay attention. The process is not about you. It should be, but it's not. It should be, but it's not. So I want you to be very careful. Don't let this happen to you. Do not let yourself be swept along by the current, which is the recruiting process. It's heady stuff. Here's a big time recruiting firm coming to you because they want you to consider being the CEO or the chief operating officer of this entity or that entity. That's heady stuff, I understand. But you have to understand that a bad mistake can cripple your career. You have to understand that the talent acquisition process is not in your favor. It's transactional and it's broken as hell. So there are some very good people in it, and there's some very honorable people in it, but there are a lot of people in it who are in it for the fee, who are in it for their reputation, who are in it to keep that country club membership funded and their private school tuition paid. So when you start thinking about career, the process in those terms, you can get through it with no muss or fuss as long as you have your radar running at high degree of sensitivity the whole time. And if you hear stuff, don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. If you hear something that concerns you, there's probably a reason it concerns you. Ask your coach. If you're out there as a lone wolf, find somebody you can trust, but you need somebody else who can give you, somebody who knows the process. Don't go talk to somebody who hasn't looked for a job in 10 years, because believe me, in today's market, they don't know anything from anything. It's changed that much. But you can find someone who knows the process, who's out there, who sees what's going on and can help you. And you need to find that person to avoid a mistake. You don't need to be You don't need somebody to have to come for you at the last minute for a deep water rescue to save your career. I want to thank you, all of you, for joining us today. I know we get a lot of people who watch this on replay. We are probably going to replay this tomorrow at noon. So we hope if you missed it, or if you want other friends to see it, it's going to be on at noon on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. And so we hope you'll join us. It'll also be available later this afternoon on YouTube on Guiding Your Career, John G. Self's YouTube page. So check it out, and we'll have it up. Now, another word. Hi, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this replay of our office hours from yesterday afternoon at 4 p.m. This is a regular Wednesday afternoon event, and we're trying to always provide career coaching, live coaching on issues that will help you avoid making mistakes in the job search process. This is not a fair process. This is not a process that's necessarily concerned with your well-being or your future. You have an employer looking for the best person, and you have a recruiter who wants to find the best person and take care of that client and make a fee. And sometimes those interests do not align with yours. They may not tell you the full truth. That happens frequently. They may withhold information to keep you in the loop, because their goal is to have a strong panel of candidates, even if they have an internal candidate. And sometimes they don't want you to know there's a strong internal candidate, because they need to surround that internal candidate with a lot of other strong candidates for the client to look at. They are worried about their relationship with the client more than they are worried about their relationship with you. And I'm talking about the recruiter. So they're part of the process. Treat them as you would a professional, but don't turn your back and don't trust them too much, because it's just not the nature of the beast that you can play that game. So I hope this has been helpful. We'll we're going to rejoin now the end of the stream, and we will see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. for our weekly question time on this stream. So it'll be on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Your Career Community Questions. See you tomorrow, everybody. These live streams, these live coaching sessions, we've been making them available to the public as we try to build our membership program. Well, we're really working now and powering up our marketing for the membership program. We've sort of worked out the kinks, and we're going to start really soliciting more members. As we build our membership, this kind of content will be members-only content. So if you like what you're seeing, become a founding member today. That locks in your membership forever. You will never have an increase on your $49 a month. So every week we're going to be, unless we are off for the summer, or off for a week in the summer, you're going to get office hours on Wednesday, Career Live on Thursday. Now, Career Live will remain a public viewed stream, as will the question and answer session at 11 a.m. on Friday. But office hours and lunch and learn, which is second and third Tuesday of every month, will continue these will be strictly for subscribers only. And we will probably eventually, all of it will be subscriber only. So we hope you'll become part of our group, Your Career Community, and you can get, not only do you get access to all this content, you'll have the newsletter that comes out daily with a quote of the day and a short commentary on the quote or another issue of importance to career management. And then we also have several other products that we're working on to help you build your career. Now, a lot of people say, well, building a career, John, I don't need this all the time. Building a career management is not looking for a job. It's the process of managing your brand, your reputation, and your strategy going forward. If you do not have a written career plan, you are hurting yourself. The research is so clear. And the Harvard Business Journal has said that the people who have written career plans tend to accomplish their goals more than those who don't. And guess what else? They also tend to make more money than the people who don't. And guess what else? The vast majority of people don't have a written career plan. So what does that say to you? it opens up a barn door wide opportunity for you to elevate your career because you can take advantage of a huge hole in the marketplace. It gives you leverage. Another thing I would encourage you to do is um, really be mindful of what's going on in the market. Pay attention. Don't just blow this stuff off and say, well, I've got a job. I don't need to worry about it. Your job can change on a dime. And it just did for about 175 people at Tufts. They weren't expecting to be laid off, and most of it was managers and non clinical personnel. So we're back into our programming notes again tomorrow morning at 7:30, Career Live. At noon tomorrow, you'll have a replay of office hours this session, and then 11 a.m. on Friday we have your career questions. We spend 30 minutes answering people's questions, and there are some. They are all over the place and it's interesting. All of our streams right now are on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We're going to be adding to that next year, but right now that's the three big ones, and so we hope that you will continue to track with us, watch the stuff, refer it to other people. If you know people who are struggling in their career, refer them to our content. There's a lot of content on YouTube that's free. We also, if you become a member in our career member, your career community member group, you have 10 or 11 courses, about 8 or 9 hours of instruction on resumes, interviewing skills, career planning, networking, all of the key elements of managing a career. That's available to you online on demand as a manager, as a member of our group community. So thank you all very much. We hope to see you tomorrow morning at 7:30 for Career Live.